So UFC Fight Night Yarn versus Dvalishvili is going to be taking place in the theatre at Virgin Hotels. Should be a pretty fun event. I'm looking forward to it. This is my final predictions. A couple of my picks have changed, which I'm a little bit nervous about. I do always get a little bit nervous when my picks do change, but I'm pretty confident in my picks. I'm pretty happy with my picks. A couple of things have changed. I have changed my picks a little bit, as I said, but also we've lost Carlston Harris versus Abubakar Nurmagomedov. That fight is now cancelled. Hopefully they can find a short notice opponent for Carlston Harris. If they do, I will update you on the channel. As always, 125% sign up bonus there. I will be doing my AI prediction video tomorrow. I'm looking forward to making that. And as always, subscribe. I mean, I never really ask people to subscribe at the start of my videos, but I would appreciate it. Let's just get into the picks though. Tyson versus Bruno Silva. I do have Bruno Silva as the slight favourite in the matchup. He hasn't fought in a while. Tyson though, for the most part, really all he does bring is a very good striking style. He's got a lot of KOs. I believe he's got 3 KOs in the UFC at flyweight, which isn't something you see every day, but he is an older guy. I believe he had a great career prior to the UFC. He did have a great career, that's a fact, but yeah, he's definitely almost 40, so he's an older guy, especially for 125. Bruno Silva, he's not super young for 125 either. He's 33 years old. He's taken a bit of time off. But what I do like out of Bruno Silva is he spent a lot of time with Henry Cejudo, a lot of time training with Henry Cejudo. So you know he's going to have good wrestling and grappling. But he's also got very powerful strikes. I mean, recently he's coming off that KO win over Victor Rodriguez. He KO'd JP Buys before that in JP Buys' debut as well. I think that Bruno Silva is going to look to take down Tyson who does have very good takedown defense. But I'm going to trust Bruno Silva can get him down to the ground, and I do have Bruno Silva to win the fight. I'm not too sure if he finds a finish, but I do think he's going to get it done. The next one is Tony Gravely versus Victor Henry. I'm seeing a lot of people picking Tony Gravely in the matchup. I'm sticking to Victor Henry. I feel like Victor Henry at his best is a better fighter than Tony Gravely at his best, and I'm trusting that Victor Henry is what shows up. Victor Henry had an unreal performance at the UFC. In his UFC debut, on short notice against Hayone Barcelos, but he's actually a pretty good grappler himself, and he does have a few submission wins on his record. He's got 8 of them, and he's never been subbed before, he's never been finished before. Not like I would expect Tony Gravely to go out there and finish Victor Henry. I think Gravely does have a very clear path to victory with the constant wrestling. He's got a lot of takedowns in the UFC. I believe he's actually pretty close to the bantamweight takedown record already, which is crazy, mainly thanks to his fight against, I believe it was Simon Oliveira, where he took him down like 11 times, maybe 14 times, something crazy. But I got Victor Henry. I think he's the better striker. I think the fight stays on the feet, and I think he's going to win it on the feet. So give me Henry by decision. He didn't look good against Assuncao, so I'm a little bit nervous about that, but he looked so good against Barcelos, so be interesting to see what happens in that matchup. JJ Aldrich versus Ariane Lipski. Fun fact, JJ Aldrich actually fought on the one and only fight card that I've ever been to, and that was a UFC Fight Night way back in the day, 2017, in Auckland. Lewis versus Hunt. I'm from New Zealand, and we don't get many fight cards. I know that Dan Hooker did headline against Paul Felder, but I missed the card, unfortunately. We've got JJ Aldrich here. She should be able to beat Ariane Lipski. Lipski's fought some really good fighters outside of the UFC that I didn't really even notice until somewhat recently, which was funny, but she beat Silvana Gomez-Suarez, who ended up in the UFC, Mariana Moraes, who's in the PFL, Diana Bautista, who's in the UFC. I mean, there's also fighters earlier on in here that you might even be able to recognize earlier on in her career, but she's fought a lot of good fighters, but unfortunately, in the UFC, she hasn't really been able to put it all together. JJ Aldrich does put it all together. She's got great striking, mainly a boxing striking style as of recent anyway, but she's also a very good wrestler and grappler herself. She beat Gillian Robertson, and then she actually defended a couple takedowns against Erin Blanchfield, and I think she even got her own takedown against Erin Blanchfield as well. So that's a pretty good look for JJ Aldrich. JJ Aldrich is probably one of those girls who I can definitely see maybe going on a win streak soon and maybe even be able to crack the rankings because she's a great fighter. I think she beats Ariane Lipski here. I think she uses all of her tools to get it done. Mainly in the wrestling and grappling is where I think she's got the biggest advantage, so I think she wins a decision using that sort of style of fight. We move on, Mario Bautista versus Guido Cannetti. Insanely wide lines. I don't really agree with the size of the lines, but I do think Mario Bautista does get the job done over Guido Cannetti, and I do think he finds a finish. It's a little bit of a weird fight for Guido Cannetti. I feel like Guido Cannetti's one of those guys that should just be fighting the guys at the very bottom of the bantamweight division, but maybe he's trying to go on some sort of late rankings run. I mean, Mario Bautista, if he beats Guido Cannetti, he's probably one fight maybe even 2 fights away from a top 15 ranking opportunity, you know what I mean? So, I think Mario Bautista beats Guido Cannetti. I think maybe after this, if he fights someone close to the top 15, and then he could fight in the top 15, or maybe fight someone else to get to the top 15. But he's getting there. He's on a good win streak right now. He's looked very good. Finished Benito Lopez in his return, who just didn't look the same. But Guido Cannetti's 43. He slows down a lot after the first round. I think Mario Bautista is going to find the finish in the second or the third round. I don't think it's going to be a first round finish. I think it's going to be second or third round finish. But, yeah, Guido Cannetti's pretty dangerous still. He does have power in the hands. He does have pretty good grappling ability. But I think Bautista's just going to outlast him, grind him out maybe in the first round, and then find the finish after that. Sedriques Dumas versus Josh Fremd. I really like Sedriques Dumas in this matchup. I really like Sedriques Dumas as a prospect. He seems like a very cool dude, very likable personality, good fighter as well, exciting fighting style, very good kickboxer, decent grappler, decent offensive wrestler. The only place that he struggles, I would say, is in the defensive wrestling, like in defending takedowns, but aside from that, very good, very solid. He fought Matej Pinhas, who was 22-3 in kickboxing, former Glory kickboxer as well. Very, very good striker in Matej Pinhas, and he submitted him in like a minute, which is pretty crazy. And on the feet as well, in the very, very short amount of time that the fight took place on the feet, he looks pretty good too. Before that, he hasn't really beaten the best guys in the world, but, you know, he's still a very good fighter, and I do rate him very highly, and I like his style. He's very cool. He's got a very cool look about him. I think he finishes Josh Fremd. Josh Fremd's only been finished a couple of times, I believe, in his career, but he got submitted brutally by Tresean Gore. By that guillotine. It was crazy. He's also been KO'd by Gregory Rodriguez. Not a lot of shame in that, but it's just a bit of it's a rough fight to take on short notice from Fremd. I do think Dumas is going to find the finish. I think he's going to find a KO in this one here. He's very, very good striker. Very good. He's also good offensive wrestling. You see a lot of wrestling in that Aaron Highbar fight, which happened before Dana White's Contender Series. Raphael Assuncao versus Davey Grant. The pick is the same. I've got Davey Grant. I think this fight takes place on the feet. I think Assuncao probably wants it to go to the ground, but I think Davey Grant will be able to defend the takedowns and keep it on the feet. This is going to be a battle. I think this is going to be a bit of a war. I think Davey Grant's going to turn it into a war. You know what I mean? I feel like they're going to be trading a lot of shots on the feet. And when it comes down to it, I feel like the guy that can take the shots more and dish out more is Davey Grant. I feel like Raphael Assuncao, if he gets into a war, someone like Davey Grant can probably finish him. You know, there's a lot of people out there that think that Davey Grant even beat Adrian Yanez. It was a very, very competitive fight. But he had a competitive fight on the feet with Adrian Yanez. And then he beat Lewis Smolka in a war. He lost to Marlon Chito Vera, you know, and he beat Jonathan Martinez. Very well-aging win. I think on the feet, Davey Grant should be able to win this one here. Assuncao wants it on the ground. I don't think he's going to get it to the ground. I think Grant's going to finish him in the third round. Accumulation of damage, and he's going to find something in the third. So give me Grant by KO in the third round. We move on. Lukasz Brzeski taking on Karl Williams. Both of these guys pretty small for heavyweight, mainly because Karl Williams is a former light heavyweight. He spent, I believe, almost his entire career at light heavyweight, but then he took on a short notice fight against Jimmy Lawson, and he won that fight, and I think maybe he just really liked the way that he felt at heavyweight, so he's decided to stick to heavyweight. Makes sense to me. He's a very good offensive wrestler. He's got very good wrestling, actually. He actually out-wrestled the D1, Penn State D1 wrestler, and Jimmy Lawson, should I add. Only took him down 3 times, but controlled him for the whole fight, pretty much. That's kind of what he does. For the most part, he's just a wrestler, really. That's kind of all he really brings to the game. Brzeski, in my opinion, is very well-rounded. He was my original pick. I like Brzeski. I think he was robbed in his debut against a very good fighter in Martin Buday. I know what Karl Williams is going to do. Brzeski was the original pick because I think he's the better striker, and I still do feel that way. But I rewatched the Jimmy Lawson fight, and I know Jimmy Lawson gassed out in the first minute of the fight. And I know Karl Williams wasn't able to find the finish over literally a guy that gassed out in the first minute of the fight. He still took him down at ease in the start of the fight as well. And Lawson's not a joke of a wrestler. He's a good wrestler. But he doesn't have best takedown defense, I guess. He didn't have good takedown defense at the start of his career. But Lawson's still that good wrestling base. You know what I mean? I think he's going to take down Brzeski here and control him for 3 rounds and win a decision. So I got Williams by decision, but I'm not confident, man. I really kind of want Brzeski to win because he's very exciting style. Williams doesn't have the most exciting style in the world, but I feel like he's just he knows what he needs to do, and that's to take down Brzeski and control him. Brzeski does have good BJJ, but I've got Williams. Now I've got Anton Turkalj as the underdog against Vitor Petrino. Vitor Petrino is a very good, very strong striker. You're going to hear that from everyone. He's a powerful striker. But man, this guy does not really have good grappling. You know, he gets taken down, and when he does get taken down, it doesn't really look like he knows what to do. He got knocked down by Rodolfo Balato, which was a rematch after he knocked him out in 25 seconds in his debut. But man, Vitor Petrino gets taken down, and he doesn't really know what to do. And someone that is going to take him down is Anton Turkalj. Anton Turkalj is from Sweden. He said in interviews he's been training with Alexander Gustafsson. He's done a grappling match with Alexander Gustafsson. He's even trained with Khamzat Chimaev. You know what I mean? Like, this guy, he's well-rounded too. He's a very good striker. Not as good of a striker as Vitor Petrino is, in my opinion. But I think he's the much better wrestler and grappler. And he took down his opponent 11 times in his Dana White's Contender Series fight. I think he's going to take down Vitor Petrino. And then he lost on short notice against Jailton Almeida. You know, like, dude, like, and even then, he lasted almost to the end of the first round. And he showed just really good defensive grappling in that fight. Even though it only lasted less than a round, against Jailton Almeida, he did show really good defensive grappling. I think the Pleasure Man, I love that nickname. I think it's hilarious, is going to beat Vitor Petrino by taking him down multiple times, maybe even get a sub later in the fight. But I think it's just going to be, I think Turkalj wins with his grappling. I don't know if it's going to be a decision, maybe even gets a KO, but I think he's going to get a submission or decision over Petrino. I don't see too many people picking Turkalj, but he's the much better wrestler and grappler. He should be able to get it done. Said Nurmagomedov versus Jonathan Martinez. This is a fight of the night fight, potentially. Said Nurmagomedov and Jonathan Martinez are both very, very good strikers. Said Nurmagomedov is a grappler sometimes. I mean, he's got very bad takedown accuracy, but he's shooting for takedowns often. That's the thing. He doesn't necessarily always get the fight to the ground, but he always is threatening with takedowns at least, even if he doesn't even have intentions to get it to the ground. He goes for takedowns anyway. I think he's got like a 9% takedown accuracy. It's terrible. But what it tells you is he's shooting for takedowns often. You know, to get a takedown accuracy of 9% and then average 2 takedowns per 15 minutes. You've got to be shooting 20 takedowns a fight. You know what I mean? He's shooting takedowns all the time. Not super often, but he is shooting them sometimes anyway. I think that he's going to beat Jonathan Martinez in that area of the fight. I think he is going to be able to get it done in that way. In the grappling, I know Jonathan Martinez is a good grappler, but for the most part, what he is a Muay Thai specialist with incredible kicks, great leg kicks, great body kicks, great head kicks, but so does Said. Said's also got great kicks, he's got great boxing, he's got great striking, but he's got great grappling himself. Very good defensive grappling. I mean, he submitted Said Romanov by a guillotine, a defensive guillotine. Douglas Silva Andrade ended up beating him, but did have a couple of problems in that matchup. Beat Cody Stamann by a defensive guillotine as well. I think Nurmagomedov gets it done over Jonathan Martinez, man. If Nurmagomedov is going to start getting takedowns, it's going to be against Martinez. I think he's going to beat Jonathan Martinez. I think he's going to shoot for a couple of takedowns. I don't think he's going to spend the whole fight on the ground, but I think if he has to, he's definitely going to look to use that grappling. Whereas Martinez, I know he's got good grappling, but for the most part, he really wants to stay on the feet with Said Nurmagomedov. Next one is Ricardo Ramos versus Austin Lingo. Ricardo Ramos is pretty wild striker, pretty good grappler, very offensive in kind of everything he does. Austin Lingo pretty similar. You know, he's got a lot of finishes coming into the UFC. A lot of finishes. I mean, almost all of his fights ended in the first round, and then he made his debut against Yusuf Zalal. I think it was short notice as well. He ended up losing that one, but since then he's gone on to win a couple of fights by decision in the UFC, which is pretty good to see. But I do think that Ricardo Ramos is going to win, man. He's a crazy striker. He throws spinning kicks, he throws spinning elbows. I think he's throwing like a spinning back fist and it missed, and he KO'd him with the elbow or something crazy when he KO'd Danny Chavez. But if Ramos wants to take it to the ground, he can take it to the ground. If he wants to have it on the feet, I think he's going to have success on the feet as well. I think Austin Lingo is going to get pressured by Ramos, and I think Ramos is going to be able to take over in the fight. So I've got Ricardo Ramos winning this matchup. Austin Lingo's live. I mean, he's a finisher early on in his career. Recently, he's been getting a lot of decisions. I think that Ramos is going to be able to beat him in this matchup here. Next one is Krylov versus Spann. Obviously, I broke this down quite a few times now, actually, because it's been rebooked. I do have Krylov. I think Krylov gets it done. I think he's the much better wrestler grappler. He's got better cardio. I know he was sick, which is a red flag, and he was sick only 2 weeks ago. I don't know how sick he was, because if he was super sick, he definitely would not be fighting 2 weeks after, but it must have been a small problem. It is a catch weight at 215 pounds. That does favour Ryan Spann, in my opinion, because he is going to be the bigger fighter. He's 6'5" with a reach advantage. He's just massive for 205 pounds, honestly. I like Krylov in the matchup, though. I think Krylov gets it done. I like his wrestling. I like his grappling. I think he's going to be taking down Ryan Spann early in the fight. I think he's going to be... Because Spann's dangerous for rounds, and then after the first round, I don't think he's as dangerous. I know Ryan Spann's got a lot of first-round submissions, and I know Krylov has a lot of first-round submission losses. But I just think Krylov gets it done, man. Because if you look at their stats, though, it is pretty crazy. Because thanks to Tapology now. Tapology's new way that they set up this win-loss thing is amazing. But look at his thing. He's got 5 submission losses in the first round. Spann has 10 submission wins in the first round. It's pretty sketchy like that. I understand. But I think Krylov is going to be safe if it goes to the ground, you know. I think he beat Spann. He had a very impressive performance against Oostmir as well. It was such a fun fight. I've got Krylov to win the matchup. Volkov versus Romanov. This is where my pick has changed. I originally was on Alexandr Volkov. I don't know if I changed, though. It's such a close, tough fight because I like Volkov. I don't know. I know Romanov doesn't necessarily have a cardio problem. I know that he did gas out badly against Marcin Tybura, but he dominated that first round against Tybura and then gassed out because the event was in Salt Lake City at high altitude. Volkov does have good cardio. We've seen Volkov go 5 rounds before. Volkov's pretty low volume, though, and I don't think he's going to make Romanov pay for the amount of time that the fight is spent on the feet is my problem, because Volkov's the much better striker. Romanov isn't that good at striking. He's just really good at offensive wrestling and grappling. Very good at judo as well, I believe, what his base is. But look at who he's beaten. Chase Sherman, Jared Vandera, Juan Espino in a fight which he probably should have lost, to be honest, and then Marcos Rogero Dilema. Volkov, he's fought the best of the best. He just knocked out Rosenstrike. He lost to Tom Aspinall, beat Marcin Tybura himself, lost to Cyril Gahn in over 5 rounds, I think that was, and he beat Overeem as well. And I think that was a 5-round fight as well. So, you know what, I'm going to go with Volkov. I'm still sticking with Volkov. I think Romanov's good. I think Romanov could definitely win the fight. But I've seen Volkov go 3 rounds without any issues. I know Romanov gassed mainly due to it being in Salt Lake City, but at the end of the day, he still did gas. It'll be interesting. This is an interesting fight because I wouldn't be that surprised if Romanov just goes out there and takes down Volkov easily. But the thing is with Romanov, he has not fought the same level of competition Volkov has. Volkov's been at the top of the heap for a long time. I think Volkov wins by decision or late TKO. Volkov's going to be much more dangerous on the feet than Romanov, in my opinion. But he's still low volume when he fights wrestlers. He doesn't do that good against wrestlers. But I'm still going to go with Volkov. It's a risky pick, but I'm still going to slide with it. Petr Yan versus Merab Dvalishvili. I do have Petr Yan in this matchup here. I think he's going to get a late finish or win by decision. I hope he doesn't just take the first round off like he kind of does. He didn't really take the first round off against Sean O'Malley, but he did against Sterling, and that's what cost him the decision, in my opinion. Yan didn't throw anything for the first 2.5 minutes of the fight, and that's why he lost. If he started throwing earlier in the first round, he would have won that fight because it come down to the first round, and at the end of the day, Sterling was just doing more activity while Yan was standing there doing absolutely nothing. So that's why he lost the fight. He beat Corey Sandhagen in what was my fight of the year, and I believe it was 2020. I absolutely loved that fight. It was incredible. 2021, I believe, actually. But anyway, yeah, dude, like, he's just... Petr Yan's a much better striker. He's got good wrestling himself, good defensive wrestling himself. I think he's going to keep it on the feet and beat Merab Dvalishvili up while the fight's on the feet. I think he is going to make Merab pay while the fight is on the feet. I know people have been saying to me in my comments, saying that he beat Jose Aldo in the 3rd round on the feet. But Aldo just gave up in the 3rd round, dude. I don't know what he did. Aldo claims that he just took the 3rd round off, but he just coasted, dude. Aldo was doing nothing in the 3rd round. It was weird and sad to see. But, yeah, I think Petr Yan defends the takedowns. I mean, Aldo was able to defend 16 of Merab's takedowns. We've seen Merab get caught by Marlon Moraes because Merab's striking's pretty sloppy. I think Petr Yan gets it done, man. I think he does. I think maybe he's going to be able to finish him late. I know Dvalishvili's got insane cardio, but we haven't seen that cardio over 5 rounds either. It'll be interesting to see, but I do think that Petr Yan's going to be able to get it done, man. Yeah, I think Yan gets it. I've got Yan by late TKO or by decision. Let me know what you guys think. I really do appreciate all the comments and that. Subscribe if you enjoyed the video. And I've got more content coming this week. Obviously, my AI predictions are going to be coming out tomorrow. And then a bunch of just kind of different MMA content will be coming out later in the week. So I'm looking forward to that. And I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.